So I'm super pumped that Lightning Ventures is able to support and invest into Cloaked Wireless. And it's led by Jonathan Wilkins, who is an original co-founder of Blockstream. Um, Adam Back is a confirmed technical advisor for this project. Um, Austin Hill, Rusty Russell are also advisors. One advisor I can't name, I wish I could. Also, they're listening to Greg Maxwell, Matt Corralo, Ian Goldberg. Their previous investors include Hammie Hill, who is a former CFO of Blockstream. These are really, really smart all-stars. And this is a very, very big idea that is potentially going to be needed by so many of us in a surveillance world that we're living in. Okay, this is a privacy focused 5G wireless network. Okay, that is what it is. Okay, and that's just the start of what they're doing. There's a lot here. So I apologize if Jeremy's microphone wasn't the best for his audio. This is a very big business. There's a lot of stuff that they're doing, okay? And ridiculously smart people within an all-star team. So that being said, they also have an amazing explainer video that is 7 minutes long and covers everything that you would want to know, right? So I'm going to link to that. And maybe we'll do a little clip or two of that now, and then we'll get into it. All right.
Leveraging some of the latest innovations in Bitcoin and blockchain technology, they have come up with a three-part product strategy that will disrupt multiple billion-dollar industries and bring about a future where, for the first time, everybody will be able to easily connect with and use the internet privately. The first part of this strategy is a privacy and security-focused 5G wireless offering that provides the world's best protection against unauthorized SIM swap attacks. The second part is an open-source protocol and VPN service that allows users to connect and interact with the internet anonymously. This open-source solution is built on top of Bitcoin's Lightning Network. It allows users to make anonymous micropayments to Lightning node operators to incentivize them to handle the network traffic. Cloaked Network is not creating its own token or cryptocurrency. Everything operates using Bitcoin, unlike some other organizations in the space that have seen limited adoption of their token-incentivized systems. Finally, they bring these two offerings together to create a distributed wireless infrastructure that will enable greater privacy and security than the current wireless infrastructure can offer.
All right. Hello. Welcome to another Lightning Ventures founder interview. I am really excited here today to talk to Jeremy and Jonathan of Cloaked Wireless. Now, these dudes are like wicked smart. You know what I'm saying? These dudes are like next level smart. Okay. So without going into all of that and spending a bunch of time on it, I just want to do a brief little intro here. Jonathan was previously at Blockstream, and Don's a co-founder title over there. He was also with River Financial as a chief security officer. He's definitely been in the privacy and security space for a long time, probably since I was somewhere in high school. He rides a motorcycle. Last time I saw him, I met him in Pacific Bitcoin. He was wearing a lot of leather. I think that's for the motorcycle there. They pitched out there. We can talk about that in a little bit too. And his co-founder, Jeremy Hill, who I don't know a lot about, but I know that he is a marketer, right? So oftentimes here we talk about founder makeup and the difference of having two founders where you have one that's maybe really good at marketing and selling and the other one who's maybe a technical beast, so to speak, right? That's one of the best founder combinations that you can have. So, gents, without further ado, how are you today?
Very good. Thanks for having us, Mike.
All right. I hope we can hear you. Jonathan, how you doing?
Doing well. Happy to be here.
Are you outside or what? Where are you right now?
I'm outside. Yeah, I'm basically at my place. It's a boat here in Alameda.
He's a privacy guy. He's not going to tell us where he is. All right. So, Cloaked Wireless. This is, let me just go ahead and explain it in my plebeian way. Okay, first, and then you guys can dig in with all the fancy stuff here. Okay, so Cloaked Wireless is an MVNO, right? And that's a question that we have here is what the heck's an MVNO, right? We have an MVNO 5G nationwide wireless offering, right? Same as you would have with Verizon, T-Mobile, and Cricket, and yada, yada, and all these other things, right? That is focused on privacy and security, right? Private and secure by default, okay? We're going to talk about SIM swaps and some of the other problems that Cloaked has solved. And this is also a three-part strategy that's disrupting multiple billion-dollar industries, okay? And that includes a VPN sort of offering, a better Tor, if you will, something along that lines that we're going to get into, and a way that you can earn Bitcoin by relaying and anonymizing traffic and extending sort of these FEMO cell towers, if I'm saying that right, a FEMO cell tower, in a way that if you were near a cloaked tower and that was yours, you would be able to benefit from that for a lower wholesale cost than it costs Cloaked to perform that, right? So this is a lot, right? Is it a wireless company? And now I'm putting a thing in my house and I'm a node operator, right? And it's a VPN and a browser offering. So there's a lot to unpack here and they're very busy dudes. So let's start with the 5G offering for the wireless. Do you want to give maybe a 30-second overview, either of you, on just where the idea came from and why you started this?
Right. So at Blockstream, we had an employee who was SIM swapped, and when we went back to our carrier and tried to look at what the solutions for this were, there was nothing really all that encouraging as far as permanent solution. And in the years since, it's been still nothing. None of the major carriers have put in place anything that's really secure. In fact, there was a study done a little while ago where they set up accounts on all of the major vendors and were 100% successful in SIM swapping those accounts across all the three major vendors. Now, this is obviously a major concern for people in the industry. Having your assets, your digital assets, vulnerable to theft due to SIM swaps is something that's plagued the industry for a number of years. One of our investors lost famously $25 million in a single event, and so we were looking to have some sort of solution for this. And basically, the solution for this is having control over the customer relationship, the customer account. And that's what you do with an MVNO, is you have that direct relationship with the customer, and the SIM swap decision comes down to your system logic. So
one of the things that Jonathan mentioned to me, early on when we started, was that it's hard to be a security company if you can't secure your own phones within your own company, right? And with so many corporate breaches that are taking place because someone in their network operations team has been SIM swapped and compromised, and as a result, it creates a breach into that company's infrastructure. It's kind of like you can't really go out and do privacy and security work if you can't secure your own phones. And it's kind of one of the driving forces for starting that part of the business.
So how does a SIM swap actually happen? I've never been SIM swapped, thankfully. You hear about it all the time. You read it. I've never been as close to it as you just said. But like, how does somebody fall for this sort of deal? I mean, how does it work?
It has nothing to do with you falling for anything. It's essentially something that's completely out of your control. So the common tactic is that someone will go into a store and claim that they lost their ID or whatever, and they give them your number, they have your social, they've got all that sort of information, and then they can convince the sales agent to set up a new phone with your number. More difficult to defend against is some of the bigger hacking groups have large budgets for bribing employees at these companies to do these SIM swap attacks. So there's a group called Lapsus, which is responsible for breaking into Okta, Uber, T-Mobile, and a lot of Microsoft and a lot of other companies this last year. And they were offering $20,000 a week for someone to perform several SIM swap attacks. So that tells you just how profitable it has been for them and how much value they place on this. So
and typically, sorry, John,
go ahead.
I was going to say, typically what ends up happening is, Mike, for example, you're a fairly public figure in the Bitcoin community. People will find those figures. They will find out their phone number, go call the providers. Eventually, they'll find the provider, that phone number belongs to. And so for you as an end user, you're simply sitting at home. Everything works fine because you're on Wi-Fi. And then you go to leave your house, and your data's not working. Why is your data not working? You go to look, and all of a sudden your phone's not connected to any network. Why isn't your phone connected? Where's your phone number? You call your provider, and all of a sudden they tell you, no, your phone number's been swapped to a new SIM. It happened earlier today. Now, by the time you've called your operator, that's it. Your accounts have been breached. Anything with using SMS two-factor authentication has been reset and drained of any value. They literally will have a team of people waiting to go into all these systems the second that swap happens. So by the time you notice it, it's usually too late.
Okay, so then what? I mean, how is that possible? Somebody just has your phone number. They walk into a T-Mobile store or something, and they give them a line of, I want to port this to whatever. It's just that easy. It's over.
They call and they'll say, "Listen, I'm in France. I lost my phone. I can't come into the store to authenticate myself." Right. So when the researchers did it, they were successful 100% of the time on the first call, just with social engineering. Now, Jonathan was saying, social engineering is one thing. How many of these people making $30,000 or $40,000 a year are going to say no to $20,000 a week to do 2 or 3 of these?
So then, what protections are currently in place, right? What do people do? All right. If I'm a Verizon guy or whatever, what is the best security that I could do personally, right, before Cloaked launches? What would I do?
Well, the problem is that the protections that they tell you can use are you set a PIN on your account. Problem is that the people who are doing these as an insider have access to that PIN. So there's really no protection if you're on one of the major carriers, and it's not really forced on them regulatory wise to fix the problem yet. And as a result, they just haven't. All
right. So then let's go into, without like a crazy, key punch and hole punch and this, that, and the other thing. How does the Cloaked solution differ? Right? What is the innovation here to where this then makes this a thing of the past?
So we don't have any customer service agents who can do anything on your behalf. Any change to your account has to be done by you after you've authenticated with our system. And we provide for strong authentication, like you can use a Bitcoin key, you can use Lightning Auth, you can use something called WebAuthn, or it's now known as Passkey, which is the Apple name for it. And it essentially uses a strong cryptographically strong authenticator to gate access to your account. So if you don't have that authenticator anymore, it's not your number anymore. So not your key, not your number.
Okay, that's really cool. Now that's interesting. That's unique, right? Only to Bitcoin. Okay. And that's if you are irresponsible, if you lose your Bitcoin, if we've all lost some Bitcoin or maybe gave some to my wife, she still can't remember this password from 2013. And we try once a year, we try, but it is gone forever, right? So if you lose access to your phone number, there is nothing that can be done, right? You say goodbye to your 917 number or whatever you have, that's over. Is that correct?
That's correct. If you set up the strong authentication, the advantage that we have in the Bitcoin community is that we know how to secure keys like this. Setting up a, any number of the metal key backup systems provides really strong levels of security.
Okay,
and
very
the
cool.
other factor there as well is that we have a range of authentication choices. So depending on what you've chosen, there may be options to be able, if you have a backup device, a UTF device, for example, you've got that second one. But it's not saying, like, I think the community understands how to manage keys, and that's really the kind of core principle behind Bitcoin, which is not your keys, not your coin, and that's same applies to this. So it puts you in control and takes away that weakest link, which was that operator, customer service rep that had access to modify your account.
So when you think about the telecom industry, right, you think of these big behemoths, right? This is an impossible area to penetrate, okay, for the little guy, like email, there's like 7 relayers, and you have to go through one of them, right? So for this MVNO, which is, I believe, a mobile virtual network operator. Okay. Mm-hmm. So I've never heard of sort of a startup like, wireless company, at least not here in the US, maybe somewhere in Latin America or another country. It's more common to kind of have some smaller operators. But if you had to like compare yourself to some other carriers that are out there, who would it be without the privacy focus, but like the type of size that you're hoping to achieve?
Yeah, so it's a great question. And just to clarify all these acronyms, because the industry just riddled with acronyms. So MNO is a mobile network operator. So those are the big three, Verizon, T-Mobile, AT&T. They own the actual network. Then they're legally forced or required to provide wholesale to other operators. And those are MVNOs. So MVNOs purchase that wholesale data, voice, and SMS, and then package it up and resell it to their customers. So you can think of Mint Mobile, for example, it's an MVNO, or Cricket, or some of these other. And actually, in the U.S., there's actually more than 100 MVNOs that operate. And the reason why they're successful is because the cost of customer acquisition for the MNOs, the top level guys, is about $300+ per user, because they have to give them free phones and free HBO Max and all these things in order to entice them to come over from one network that does the same thing that the other network does. The MVNOs have a much lower customer acquisition cost because they're able to focus on a very niche vertical and provide a value prop to that vertical. So there's a Republican Wireless that donates money to the Conservative Party every year, and they obviously advertise and go into that niche. So one of the things that we benefit from is that we're able to go into what we believe is a pretty big niche, which is the Bitcoin community, the crypto community, the InfoSec community, high wealth individuals, celebrities, all of these groups that really would value this type of value prop of a private and secure wireless offering. So when we look at the U.S. market, which to your point is enormous, right? Like it's a $325 billion wireless market in the U.S. We're pretty confident that getting to achieving kind of a 0.3% of that market is something that's achievable. And when we talk about that, that's obviously hundreds of millions of dollars. I mean, the revenue of just having a small market. And again, it's kind of like that if I get this percent of all of the internet's traffic statement, but when you look at the U.S. and 2.8% of that wireless market has Coinbase on their phone. So how many Americans own Bitcoin today, for example? So these are the folks that we think our value prop will resonate with.
So, on the website here, and by the way, these are the plans, if anyone didn't see that, right? It looks like you have 3 offerings. This is not live yet. We're going to go into where you're at with the application process and all that good stuff, right? But there's 3 plans here. If anyone wants to check out cloakedwireless.com, get a little preview of what's going on here. But you guys aren't really, it's not like SIM swap language in front of you, right? You're using the word security and you're using privacy. Besides the SIM swap, are there any other sort of private features, right? I mean, I see that you're collecting limited information, which makes me all of a sudden think, well, how much information are the major carriers collecting, right? What other competitive advantages are there, right? With your, as a comp?
Yeah, so a couple of things. So the ability to pay with Bitcoin is important, right? So being able to remove the requirement to pull out a credit card. As you mentioned, we not only do we not do we collect the least amount of data possible, we also don't retain that data. So T-Mobile had a massive hack in which like 50 million of their subscribers' personal data, all the data that was used to authenticate users for SIM swaps, was released online. So it's important that we treat that kind of stuff like toxic waste, and that we don't want to collect it, and if we have it, we don't want to hold it at the end of the day. So those are really the foundations. And listen, I think Jonathan could speak to this in more detail, but there are hundreds and hundreds of privacy and security issues within the wireless industry. And, we believe as we step back from Cloaked Wireless, our ultimate objective is to create the world's most private and secure communication system. And you can't ignore wireless, right? You need to get your foot in there. And ultimately, as you grow and take over more of the technology stack, you're able to influence what's happening more and more. And so as we grow our technology stack deeper, there are going to be a lot of things that we'll be able to start doing when it comes to enhancing people's privacy in the wireless industry.
So look, this is a complicated deal, as a lot of them, a lot of our favorites are, right? There was a ton of information to go through here when we started digging into Cloaked. There was a lot. I mean, they have a very, very robust data room with tons of stuff, right? You can read FCC filings, you can read marketing plans, you can read a lot, right? And we're still talking about the mobile. Okay. We're not even talking about the rest of it yet, right? Which they've had some people tell them that the mobile isn't the real opportunity here. And it's what else they're building, right? I actually really like the mobile opportunity. And as you can see, it's a very big opportunity. Okay. So once you are in someone's pocket, is that where the money is, right? Is it that, I don't know if you want to go into the margins roughly on some stuff like that, but is that where the money is, or is it something else, right? I often wonder the makeup of these carriers versus, selling actual phones to people. How much of their business is actually made up of selling the phones, right? And contracts and other things, which I don't know if you guys are going to have a contract. But how does that work?
So some of the second things are going to be less valuable with us, because a lot of what they're doing is they're selling your information. They're selling your location data to all kinds of people. And that's something we never want to get into. We'd much rather be doing things that ensure your privacy and ensure your security, because the two things are intrinsically linked. You don't have real security if you don't have privacy over your location. Someone can track you, constantly. That's a major risk. So the deeper we get into the stack, the more we can do about that, which is sort of the way that we've sort of developed the business. Is there's basically 3 phases. The first one is the wireless business. And we think that that's going to have great margins and be a very profitable way to sort of fund and fuel the rest of our, development arc. But the next phase is building a secure VPN system. And that comes down to an issue of So back in 2000, Jeremy and I actually worked together at another company called Zero Knowledge. Zero Knowledge Systems built the first onion routed interactive onion routed network. And what that meant was that you could actually browse securely for the first time. And, technology sort of changed and it became a lot easier to, with Zero Knowledge, it was still a little bit too early. We were looking for a monthly subscription from people, and it was just too early for them to be willing to pay for privacy, at least at that sort of level. And the lessons learned from that sort of were thrown into Tor. And Tor has been around for about 16, 17 years. And unfortunately, the base protocol hasn't changed very much. It's still essentially on the wire level doing the same sort of things it was in the original version. And that actually is a major problem. There have been a lot of things that it just wasn't designed to defend against, and those things become the sort of de rigueur for surveillance as it is these days. There have been some opportunities in the latest, some of the latest technology that's being put out, in the networking space, in the privacy spaces, and we want to take advantage of that. Some of the things that Tor never was able to do was encourage all that many nodes to be running, and that's because it is run entirely on a voluntary basis. So people might have a link in the node listing saying please donate, but it's not nothing's assured. There's no way to sort of pay for better access and pay for better performance. So what we're doing is we're taking the latest version of HTTP, which is HTTP3, which is UDP based, and we're basically throwing that into a basically using that for its censorship resistance value. And the fact that it's based on UDP allows us to do a lot of things that just aren't possible with TCP. And by combining a few of these technologies with Lightning network and some of the new Chaumian token systems, we're able to provide strong incentives for people to run these nodes and to route the traffic. We're figuring that anyone who's running a Lightning node right now and throws this software on it should be receiving about 10x the revenue they are currently. So if you're getting $300 a year, you're getting more like $300 a month from routing these packets. So that's sort of the second phase. I'll pause here for questions.
Yeah, only about 765 questions come up. No big deal. Okay, so a new generation browser, okay, built on the Lightning Network, okay, where these or I'm utilizing that. How does it now? How do you make a payment and then it anonymizes the traffic? Can you explain it like I'm five?
Chaumian tokens are a new innovation. Well, actually, not such a new innovation. We actually built a demonstration system years ago at Zero Knowledge Systems, but the patents have expired and they've sort of gained some traction in the Bitcoin space. But essentially, a token that's created by a Chaumian mint, we're calling them notes because they're denominated in satoshis. These are basically redeemable by the bank. The bank can recognize that it was something that it issued, but has no idea who it issued it to or where it's gone. Just a list of characters, a string of characters, and when it receives it, it can verify that that's legit, and it can redeem it or it can issue a new one. And just it doesn't have anything like a serial number that's associated with it. It just recognizes that it was a note that it issued, and it can prove it was such, because it's cryptographically secured. It's signed by its own key.
If you look at it from like an end user perspective, right? So I sit down on my computer, I launch the Cloaked Network app, just like a VPN. I throw $10 into it. Okay, so I give it $10. Then I go to start browsing. What's happening in the background is that $10 has gone to the bank. changed into these tokens. Those tokens are now paying for each of the nodes that my data is traveling through. And each of those nodes who are handling and anonymizing my traffic is collecting a tiny fee for doing so. And so as I browse or watch Netflix or do anything privately and anonymously, my balance is draining just a little bit at a time. And it's draining and going to pay all the node operators who are handling my traffic. And so from an end user perspective, where I used to pay $5 or $7 a month for my VPN service that didn't work and didn't provide real privacy, now I pay that much to these node operators, and I'm getting complete privacy, complete anonymity, more so than anything that exists in the market today.
Okay. So now with a traditional VPN service, it doesn't require switching browsers, right? I can turn on a VPN, it runs in the background. It's not a new browser experience. But what you're building here is a new browser. Is that right?
So we're building the Cloaked network, and you can run any browser on top of it. You can run other protocols as well. So it's not just web traffic. You can do a lot of other things with it.
Yeah, and we'll have to update this, Mike. I think this might not be the. I refreshed the deck in the vault, but yeah, a lot of the really what we're focusing on now is the Cloaked network, and then really as a conscious decision to build the technology outside of the browser rather than in the browser. Simply because everything that you do on your computer will be covered by the VPN service, if you like, or the Cloaked network. Whereas if we're forcing people to use a brand new browser, it becomes an impediment at the end of the day. So really what it is sitting below that, very much like a VPN service. I think that's the best analogy to draw is, and I think it's appropriate as well, because that's literally where this money comes from, right? We're not imagining a world where all of a sudden people start paying node operators when they weren't paying for a service before. We imagine a world where the global consumer VPN market starts to pay node operators for a service that works, rather than these VPN companies that really provide a service that doesn't do what it's supposed to do.
So no need to change browsers.
Correct.
So,
now, is this same sort of technology available on the mobile phone through the wireless offerings? How do these two tie together?
So I think sorry, I was going to say before John will mention kind of strategically how they come together, which is the third part, but I'll throw in just really quickly. One of the first places where they interact is the VPN service offered as a value-added service. So you can imagine, and we'll be doing it right away, is being able to offer our customers that as a value-added service that's included in their monthly fee, that they get access to the Cloaked network with a certain amount of credits every month for them to use the Cloaked network. And so that's another monetization strategy of the Cloaked network, not only just operating a bunch of nodes and collecting revenue, but also like commercial licensing, even though it's an open source project, but we will have the right to do commercial licensing for companies that might want to offer it as a value-added service.
Okay, so right now, if you're using a major carrier, right, and I'm like surfing the web, I'm doing whatever, I'm paying my bills, you're sitting in between them. Okay, so are you beholden to them in any way? Is there certain data that they need from you, and or you can just keep it truly private as your own layer in the middle?
So it depends. So once we have the Cloaked network up and running, we'll be able to set it up so that the phone can use the Cloaked VPN system as a Cloaked network VPN system as a for all of its data. But just as you can plug in any VPN system to your iPhone, you'll be able to configure this. But that's a little further down the road. We won't have that at launch, obviously. But currently, the provider that we're using will be able to see the lookups and so forth. That's just sort of inherent to the way the system works. Down the road, we will be offering something that's a lot more private for that.
So, okay. One of the questions that we got was how the browser differs from things like Impervious, or some of these other kind of even stealth mode type of things that are out there.
So none of them allow you to browse the regular internet privately. So Impervious basically will do its own network, but it's not something you can use to browse, say, Google. Privately, yeah.
So kind of I think the real breakthrough here when we look at, I think when I look at comparables on what Cloaked Network replaces, we have the Tor network, which is falling apart in a lot of ways, and you have VPN services where there's no privacy between you and the VPN service. It's only privacy once you pass through the VPN service, and once you do, the whole world knows that you're coming from a VPN service because you're acting like a VPN service. And so as a result of that, VPNs often don't work. If you're trying to get your UK Netflix and you're in the US, every other month you gotta change your VPN service because the Netflix has blacklisted that IP, right? So you have this massive problem and a massive industry, and those are the two industries I think are most likely to be really disrupted once a better priced and just a better solution is available.
Right, and the security that they claim to offer isn't really there. So there's a company called Team Simru that de-anonymizes the source of VPN connections. Essentially, they're able to look at the backbone traffic and correlate, who's coming into the VPN and where they're coming out, fairly trivially.
That applies to Tor as well, and the Cloaked Network solves this.
Okay, so let's go into the third part of this, which is the Cloak Network sort of node operating business. And Jonathan, why don't you, in your best way, explain that to us?
So the way we bring the two things together is we'll be able to have the Cloaked Network node operators run microcells or small cells. This will allow them to route not just the network traffic, but also the wireless traffic, sort of 5G traffic. And at that point, this gives us a major advantage over the base network because it'll allow us to limit the degree to which your location is tracked. And this is a major advantage that we can't do without the step of building out this network. A couple of people have tried doing this in the past, and they were, essentially basing it on one shitcoin or another. And this has resulted in essentially insiders making a lot of money and no one else. And by building on Bitcoin, we have the real advantage that the token actually has value regardless, and that you're earning something that is a meaningful, something that has a meaningful value itself. So it is very aligned with people who are running the existing Lightning infrastructure. They, it's an additional service you just install. You're already looking for some revenue in that space, and you've probably got a reasonable internet connection available to you. So for, essentially a few minutes of effort, or if you're running one of the packages that's built by one of our launch partners, you'll be able to just click a button and have the service running.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about the kind of the 1, 2, 3, right? So we've got Cloaked Wireless, which as its own solves a massive problem, and I think we believe has huge potential as a standalone business. The Cloaked Network, which will provide, for the first time, literally since the Freedom Network, will provide the world with a truly anonymous and private browsing solution, which again, on its own, just financially, is a fantastic business opportunity. And once we have traction on both of those, we unlock this third opportunity, which is to start building a 5G wireless infrastructure in densely populated urban centers across the United States, where instead of us going and spending billions to compete against, to build an infrastructure to compete against the likes of AT&T and the big guys, we're having these node operators purchase these boxes and build that infrastructure for us. And again, building off of these other two parts of the business.
And it's a win-win for both sides. The node operators make money the entire time. They're not having to invest a huge amount of money up front with the hopes of earning. It can start with just installing the service and seeing if it is valuable for you. And if it is, and it's generating the revenue we want, then you might upgrade to a heavier node package, and so forth. And once you're at that point, if you've made a lot of money routing packets for us as a Lightning node operator, then as a Cloaked Network node operator, you're going to expand into the 5G service because it'll be a no-brainer. At every step, it's not a huge investment for anyone. It's just you can experiment and see if it works, and if it does, then continue to engage with us.
Okay.
When you look at the money side of things, just like when we talked margins, you asked earlier about the margins on the wireless business. So on the wireless business, we're expecting kind of greater than 40% margins. That's a little bit. It's about 10% higher than average for MVNOs. And the reason why is because our value prop isn't that we have crazy low prices. We have prices in the same line of the MNOs. We just offer a value prop, which is protection against SIM swaps and privacy. So that's the wireless business. When we go to Cloaked Network, we're going to be targeting to operate about 30% of the nodes in the network. We don't want to exceed that for security reasons, but we expect to maintain 30% of some of the higher quality nodes that are operating the network. We'll also have commercial licensing fees, and there'll be a small fee that the Mint will charge for the redemption of tokens and issuing of tokens. The third one, that cloaked wireless kind of mesh network is really profitable for us as Cloaked Wireless, because all of a sudden we have a lower cost data connection to provide to our users, which provides us with savings and provides them with enhanced privacy.
Okay, let's start with this. First off, why do they have to be running a Bitcoin node, right? Why does it have to have a node? Why couldn't this just be a piece of software connected with any Bitcoin address, a static address on chain, whatever you guys do? And then I'm anonymizing traffic without the need to run a node. Why is that part of this?
So you can actually run a node outside of the Lightning network. It's just that the payments initially will be, payments to the Mint will come in via Lightning, so that the tokens are anonymized to a certain degree, and there's no delay while you're waiting for it to clear on the Bitcoin network. And so the getting the initial tokens is sort of something that is the gating thing that we expect people to be able to use Lightning at least for. Now, the network itself, though, is going to have a free component. Like, we're not going to only provide service if you are a Lightning user or a paid user. We're anticipating running a certain number of nodes that will be run on a volunteer basis, and we expect a lot of the people who are running Tor nodes currently will transition over to the Cloaked network. It's sort of a massive step up in privacy, so there's no reason they wouldn't. Now, if you're using those nodes, though, you're going to be running into the same issues that the classic Tor network has run into. There's going to be a limited number of nodes, and those nodes will eventually get their IPs blocked by people who are trying to just limit the traffic from nodes that are not users are not revealing their actual IP addresses. So, but the point is, yes, you can run a node without needing to be a Lightning node operator inherently. But our expectation is that that's probably a secondary set of users who will want to do that, and also just they'll have to be Bitcoiners at least in order to be setting up the payments and receiving the payments.
Okay, so then, like, you could just have an old ThinkPad somewhere. You could just fire up these machines. And are there any other VPNs that do this sort of anonymization? Is that like
nothing that does this level of anonymization? So there are a couple of other people who came up with Tor alternatives. There was Orchid, and essentially what they did was you're just paying for someone else to run an open VPN or WireGuard node for you. It's not a real no real strong security or privacy with that. That person who's running that hop knows where you're going and knows where you're coming from. There are and that's essentially it that's out there right now. Having a onion routed 3-hop network is Tor does that, but they do it using TCP, and they do it using a first in first out kind of packet logic. So if you have an overview of the entire network, you can see the packet timings when it comes into that node and leaves. It's first in first out logic, so you can see where everything is sourced and terminates.
How many nodes do you need? Like, how does that traffic get routed? Is that based on like geography or where someone is? I mean, if I'm in New York and I fire one up and someone's in South Florida and someone's in Vietnam and,
right.
Jeremy's, browsing, how does that even work on like a high level basic way?
So there's essentially a node directory that tells you where each node is and if it's part of a group of management. And those sort of things will allow you to set certain policies. So you might want to traverse 3 different countries, or you might want to traverse 3 different node operator networks. So let's say we onboard someone like Square as a node operator. They might have 100 nodes that they're running. We might have 100 nodes, and the other people might be running a bunch of nodes. You might want to say that you don't want any one carrier to be more than 1 hop of that network logic, of that circuit logic. So those sort of things will be initially we'll have a reasonable set of defaults for those, but they'll be finely tunable by people who want to get into the weeds on that.
Some of these garbage things that are out there, right? IP, whatever, you download them. There might even be malware. I don't know, but you run them in the background of your computer, and at the end of a month, you've got like 8 cents. It's like, you can't really make any real monetization through it, right? So how does yours differ, and how do you have that kind of forecast where somebody can fire up one of these nodes and 10 times what they're making through their routing node, right? They're routing payments, making, unless you're one of the best, and very few that are out there that make substantial money. How do you then pay? Like, what does it charge? How does that work?
So it's actually fascinating because it really gets in, and Jonathan touched on this a little bit, around this kind of very pure incentive model, right? So if we look at a free service, so I launched the service, I don't want to pay anything, so I go into my settings and I say I only want to use nodes that are offering free the service for free. Well, that's going to be a lot fewer than the ones that are asking for money, and because of that, a lot of people are going to want those free nodes. And so these are probably not nodes that are being run on powerful computers. They're probably that old laptop that you throw in the corner to run a cloaked browser, a cloaked network node, because you believe in what it does. But everyone's hitting that because everyone wants the quick service. And so it fills up very quickly. You're not getting the best bandwidth. You're not getting the best performance of that node. Whereas a paid node is someone who's invested in a little bit better box with a higher capacity of concurrent users, with access to better broadband and internet. They're going to be able to process a lot more traffic. And so you get into this mode of saying, what is the real value of this privacy service that people are paying for? We know that it's at least what people pay for VPN services today. And so when we look at the number of nodes necessary to operate the network efficiently for 100,000 users or 500,000 users, you can calculate the number of nodes required. And what happens is that you start peeling off and saying, hey, well, when we get 500,000 users from consumer VPN to shift over here, that money goes into the network. You know how many nodes are operating with that many users, and you can calculate what that node revenue is going to be on average for those paid nodes. But it is fascinating because it's just this, it's kind of like Bitcoin, where it's just there's this free market, it's open source software that is put out there in the wild, and people in China can spin it up, people in Russia can spin it up. So we'll see nodes going up all around the world, and those people will decide if they want to charge for providing that service or not. But if they do want to charge, then they'll come to our mint to get tokens to do it.
Let's not waste any more time getting into it. Now, I was given this puppy right there in California, Santa Monica. I actually wanted to put it in while I was in El Salvador because I was paying way too much for the roaming, and I was like, oh, I should charge it to these guys, see if the thing works. Okay, so let's do a lightning round and let's get it up to date. We haven't even talked about one of the most exciting things, which is, everyone who's contributed to this project, your advisors, people that are in your ear, lots of names that people around here know, right? Probably should have led with that. Maybe I can record a little intro video because I think that's out the gate we should talk about. So what's going on with the FCC application? When are these for sale, right? They're not for sale yet, right? You can give them out and distribute them, but you can't market and sell. When are these online?
Yeah, we're targeting early next year. We're really just in the final stages of the FCC process right now. So assuming that goes well, we're expecting January, February for availability. And once it's live, people would be able to go pick a plan. And we're hoping to have eSIMs active at launch. If not, they'll be coming very shortly after. eSIMs will obviously enable you to light up your phone without even having to have a SIM card shipped to you, which would be awesome on the privacy front. So we're expecting that to happen in January, February of next year.
Okay, and you're expecting some pretty big numbers the first year, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think depending on how you look at it, I think we're targeting about 30,000 users in the first year. It's not terribly aggressive when you look at the growth of other MVNOs historically. But again, when we look at that, the numbers that are out there in that market that we want to reach, right? That we're talking about millions of Bitcoin owners, millions of folks in the Bitcoin and crypto space. We think that 30,000 target is pretty conservative.
And that nets us a fair amount of revenue the first year as well.
Yeah, it represents about $30 million in revenue.
And it's about 14 million in profit.
Okay. So this is available to U.S. residents only. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. We're the wireless service is just in the U.S. for now. Canada's got a bit of a nasty regulatory ecosystem when it comes to the wireless industry.
Right. So I'm a U.S. resident. I'm a U.S. citizen. I can sign up. Okay. And then there will be some sort of roaming option for global, or does that come with time? I mean, how much of the globe is covered day one?
Yeah, you got go anywhere. You'll get coverage. There's roaming everywhere. Roaming, there is an extra charge for it, obviously. You get coverage in pretty much most places in the world. There's international long distance, obviously, for calling out. I mean, really, anyone could go online. Zimbabwe, go online, pay with Bitcoin, sign up with an eSIM. Nothing in the system's going to stop that from happening. You're just going to rack up some serious roaming fees if you're using the phone all the time in Zimbabwe.
Okay, and I want to go through a lightning round of a few questions here because you could really probably get in the weeds. But what is just a really high level distribution strategy for like a go to market? I mean, the day that this is live, what's the plan? Is it distributors? Is it mall kiosks? Is it like a wholesale thing where you have these independent cell phone shops that are now offering them? Are you going to go just direct to consumer and hit it hard with the privacy, security, and all the sort of niche and your where you're going to punch some weight? What's the strategy to get this out and get signed up? I mean, I'm signing up myself and my wife, hands down, but I also know about your business. So what are you going to do to get everyone else?
Yeah, so I think it's kind of three-tiered. The first is definitely direct to consumer, so going to the places where our target audiences spend their time. So, the popular podcasts, the the forums online. We really want to go in directly to put this value prop towards the end users who understand the threat of SIM swaps and understand the value prop. Second part is through partnerships, right? So we've already been talking to a lot of the Bitcoin onboarding companies, and partnerships and affiliate programs with them. They'll be able to offer this offering to their customers who are suffering from these types of attacks. And a lot of times it's these onboarding companies that are feeling the pain of their customers being SIM swapped. So they're really excited to have this offer to be able to offer their customers, but also from a bundling perspective. Right, so some of these companies have premium offerings where, to throw in a $100 wireless plan as part of their package is just a great additional value prop for them to offer. And so, through those kind of partnerships, we expect to drive some decent volume. But again, we're targeting a customer acquisition cost of about $50, right? So that gives us enough options when it comes to marketing to really push that word out through a lot of different mediums, directly in these verticals where we think we'll have a really high adoption rate. And so by reinvesting a lot of that first year revenue that comes in through Cloaked Wireless back into customer acquisition, as we fine-tuned it and got it down to that $50 range or even below that, we'll really see, I think the majority of our customer acquisition probably comes through that channel.
Now, the browser and the other two phases here, there's nowhere on your website. That's something completely separate. I actually like that. It's not going to confuse anybody. So one of the questions that we got was, how does this compare with the shitcoin Helium? Excuse my language there.
Right.
But that was something that somebody had, and I know that that's some sort of relay thing. I had a friend here in New York who went crazy putting this shit on the roof, and I don't think it ever worked out for him. But no. How does this compare? I don't even know what they're trying to do, to be honest with you. But how does this
Helium
compare?
Was basically, as far as I can tell, it was a scam. The people who made money on it were insiders who essentially built little networks in their closets and just had them routing all kinds of traffic between them. They have, as the market has gotten through this downturn, it's essentially worth nothing anymore. And as far as I can tell, no one who was not an insider made any real significant money on it. The idea that they had was essentially they would route a couple different things, Wi-Fi and how do you pronounce it? LoRaN traffic, and you pay people who were hosting the relays. And eventually they also started talking about doing 5G as well, but at this point no one really is trusting them at all. So the difference is that we're building a network that actually has real utility for people. We know exactly how many people want to be using Tor. A lot of people don't trust Tor anymore, and for a number of reasons, some of them very good. By providing something that is actually vetted by people like Ian Goldberg and so forth, who have been working and breathing this stuff for years, as of we provide a real credible alternative, and we have something that will, step by step, get us to both a network that is secure and private for your internet traffic, but also for your wireless traffic.
Yeah, I was going to add that I think when you look at Helium, you've got this circle of self-pleasure where it's, I'm doing this to get this coin that I perceive has some sort of value, and everyone starts joining it with the anticipation of collecting this coin that has some sort of value, when they're not really solving a problem. They're building this massive Wi-Fi mesh network that doesn't do anything, doesn't really handle any traffic, and doesn't really solve any purpose because it's built on a centralized altcoin. And so, one of the reasons why it's, the last time there was a really truly private and anonymous browsing solution back when the Freedom Network was built, and we have gone 20 plus years without really having a solid solution. I think Corp was decent, I think, when it launched, but has deteriorated since. And I think the reason why today built on top of something that is completely unique, which is Bitcoin as a protocol.
Let's go through a lightning round real quick. So Canadian parent company. We actually had a Canadian LP who was unable to invest in this deal. You have the Delaware C, and then you have the Canadian parent company, right? This investment is being made in the Canadian parent company. Why is that? Why did you incorporate in Canada? Was that strategic? Was that just home for you, and not kind of the reverse?
Yeah, so Cloaked Services, which is the parent company, that is the Canadian company. So I'm actually based out of Montreal. Jonathan's a Canadian as well. And so, by default, we kind of went with the Canadian company as our corp. The wireless company is in the U.S. sub. So Cloaked Wireless is a Delaware corp. And that was primarily because, it was a U.S. wireless company, so it needed to be owned by a U.S. corporation. And the Cloaked network will be developed by Cloaked Services. So the Cloaked network, all that technology and that development team are working under Cloaked Services and will release that technology. Again, it's open source, but it will be released by Cloaked Services, not Cloaked Wireless.
Okay. So another question is infrastructure regarding your own towers. Are you going to be placing your own towers anywhere? And I don't know if that's a revenue generator for yourself. I don't know if that just lowers costs.
But yeah, we'll probably look at doing some of that when we get to that phase of the build out.
But that's phase 3, right? So once those Cloaked network node operators have the option to upgrade to boxes that have that microcell technology, and they can start collecting fees for providing 5G access as well. Once we get to that phase, then there may be strategic places where we go and say, hey, we've got enough users and traffic that's happening in this area that if we drop a couple antennas strategically, we can now cover and provide that enhanced privacy connectivity to enough users that it makes sense for us.
Especially places where our own node operators can't set up themselves. We might get a deal with who knows, a stadium or something like that, where it's not their property to throw a node up, but we can.
Okay, so just real quick, somebody wanted to know about potential enterprise customers. Is this mainly a direct to consumer, Aunt Mary and Uncle Bob, or are you really going to focus on like where it came from, right? With Blockstream, or particularly security focused? I don't know, maybe doctors. I don't know. But what's the enterprise game plan?
Yeah, so with the wireless, with Cloaked Wireless, businesses are a big part of it, right? Because that's one of the places where a lot of these corporate hacks are happening today, is that the employee's phone is compromised, and that's the back door that leads them into the company. And so we expect a lot of our subscribers to be InfoSec, network operations, sysop, all those kind of folks. We're not building a corporate version of the offering. There isn't a corporate account, because the whole idea is that the end user, that one subscriber, is the person who controls it, not their business. But I think most businesses today, the way that they'll typically do their wireless is they just compensate their staff for their wireless bill, and the staff, chooses what wireless company they use. So I think what we're hoping is that companies and certainly network operation and InfoSec teams will be going and saying, guys, everyone on the team needs to be on Cloaked Wireless, or you're not going to get your wireless bill covered, right? So that they know that at least the most sensitive people in the company are protected against these kind of attacks properly. Now, on the Cloaked network side, as I mentioned, enterprise offering looks more like a commercial licensing, so that a company like Verizon and their highest internet package could offer a Verizon VPN that operates on the Cloaked network as a value-added service. So those types of solutions we could provide commercial licensing and build out for them.
All right, so let's close it out on the advisors in the team, right? Jonathan here is the CEO. Jeremy here is, I believe it's a president title. And it was recently confirmed right before, or at least you told us about it, not long ago, that Adam Back is confirmed and joined as a technical advisor.
Correct.
Is this is real? This is real
This
news.
is real. Yep, absolutely.
No.
I've known Adam for what is it now, 22 odd years, having worked with him originally at Zero Knowledge. And after that, he came and joined me at Microsoft for a number of years, working in the passport team there. And we shared an office for a good couple of years. And essentially, when he was starting up Blockstream, he came and talked to me about joining. I was currently at the time trying to recruit him to join a startup I was trying to get going, but obviously he won that debate.
All right, Jonathan, do you want to walk us through the rest of the All-Stars? I mean, this is like the 1995 Chicago Bulls here. We've had a lot of firsts at Lightning Ventures lately, and this team of people that are around you and you're surrounded with, and yourselves both individually, is like as good as it gets. Do you want to walk through some of the rest of the advisors and who else?
So Rusty Russell, who is widely known as the gentleman who started the Core Lightning group and as lead developer there, and obviously a Blockstream employee. So he previously been heavily involved in Linux kernel, doing the IP tables, IP or net filter code. So very, very deep in the security and Linux space. And so he was also the person who, when the white paper for Lightning was released, he was the one who sort of turned that into protocols and actual code for actual use. So he was very instrumental in setting up all of the BIP system and so forth.
In addition to that, we've got Austin Hill, the original CEO and founder of Blockstream with Adam. Austin's been kind of fundamental since the start of the company in advising and kind of giving guidance. And on top of that, we've got some of the really early employees from Corp who are going to be joining the development team on the Cloaked network. And so I think one of the advantages that we've certainly benefited from is the network that has been built over the last 22 years. As Jonathan mentioned, started back at Zero Knowledge Systems, working with Ian Goldberg and Adam and all these people building out the original Freedom Network. And it's awesome today to come back and have a lot of these people still share that passion and excitement about what we tried to build 22 years ago, and the fact that we're going to be able to build it today.
Everyone on the advisor side that you could mention without getting anyone in trouble?
Yeah.
Okay. So then other people that are kind of in your ear providing some feedback, Gregory Maxwell, Matt Corralo, how have you developed a working relationship with them, and how are they involved? Are they giving you feedback?
So, Matt is also someone who I worked with. Well, Matt, founders at Blockstream. So I've known them for a number of years, and they're obviously very excited about having something that will replace Tor. The people who really understand some of these technologies have been very frustrated with the level of progress within the Tor Foundation. A lot of what they've been doing over the last few years is essentially just re-engineering the deck chairs on the Titanic. The core system hasn't grown to defend against the attacks that we know are out there. And the longer that has persisted, the more frustrated people have gotten. And so the more energy we're going to get coming into the Cloaked network.
I mean, I think a lot of the, from folks who maybe, a technical advisor, sometimes a name on a deck, for investors. These folks are providing technical advice. I mean, really technical stuff where my eyes gloss over when, Jonathan is getting into some of these deep conversations with them. But really the advantage of having this caliber of people on the project, especially an open source project like this, is not just having them available to troubleshoot those forks in the road that you encounter, those technical hurdles that you have to get over. But it's also the point of when they do start getting passionate about it, they can go in there and actually contribute at the code level as well.
So that would be the Greg Maxwell, the GOAT of Bitcoin Core developers, arguably number one. He should win an award. Okay, I think that is pretty much that's pretty much it. So you know, I'm gonna try and put some of that video in here. Cloaked has an amazing 7-minute video that breaks down everything. It is absolutely incredible. I'm gonna link to that below, and maybe I can splice some of that in the front from our fancy video editing dude. This is an absolute once in a very, very not often chance that you get to invest in this level of a team and advisors. I mean, we're talking to a Blockstream co-founder here, somebody who's been in this space long before. I mean, I can only imagine, you know, in the 90s and what you were doing. I had never even heard of this. You know, I had to find the Wikipedia when you told me about, you know, that you were basically too early with what you were trying to build, and they're getting the team back together, so to speak. And just the list of people that are involved here is outstanding. And this is such a needed product, and it's kind of a no-brainer. I mean, for the wireless, I mean, assuming that it works, assuming that the damn thing works, this is just, I can't wait to sign up. I can't.
You've got to sit in your hands.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I'm going to pop the freaking thing in. And everything that they're doing, right, with this new Tor, right? If you've been using it, the DDoS, you know, the DDoS attacks, you know, BISC, RoboSats, a lot of these things, if you're playing around when they don't work sometimes, that's rather annoying. Really cool. And I think monetizing, being able to provide another monetization stream for node runners out there, people love this stuff, man. And clearly with Helium, right, it worked with a shitcoin. And that thing, at least according to their map, it had a lot of coverage, right? So if they're doing it and you're not a scam, then surely people are going to want to earn and monetize. And we're really excited. I assure you, these two gents, they don't need the Lightning Ventures money that we're raising for them. I think that they're going to do outstanding things. I cannot wait. So if you want to learn more, cloakedwireless.com, LTNG.Ventures is us. I'm going to try and edit this video so we all look decent, and we'll see what happens. And yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to email us and we can pass it along to them. But we are really excited that they are letting us hitch our wagon to their star. And thank you guys for that.
Thanks for having us, and we're really excited to be part of the Lightning Ventures family, and really excited to see the response from the syndicate so far.
All right, guys. Well, listen,
Lightning Ventures Telegram.
Yeah. And I didn't know if you guys were going to hop in there, but if you have some questions in the Lightning Ventures Telegram channel, you can ask them directly if we didn't get them addressed. Cool, guys. All right. Well, thanks for doing this. I appreciate it. I know y'all are busy.
Cheers.